Evening, good morning, good day, depending on where you are joining from. My name is Nityananda Khanal. I am serving as the chair of the NAPA Webinar Committee. Respected NAPA President Dr. Ramji Ghimire, invited panelists Dr. Vishnu Prasad Pandey, Dr. Krishna Chandra Devkota, and Dr. Dinesh Paudel. Panel discussion moderator, Dr. Yedu Pokhrel, reviewer, Dr. Keshav Bhatrai, all respected dignitaries, NAPA executives, and all attendees. In continuation of the NAPA webinar series, we are about to begin the 42nd webinar. The topic of the webinar is weather anomalies and geoclimatic disasters, an urgent call for paradigm shift for developing resilient agri-food and livelihood systems in Nepal. The webinar is structured as a panel discussion followed by a comprehensive review. Now I'd like to request NAPA President Dr. Ramji Ghimire to welcome the panelist, moderator, reviewer, and all attendees. Over to President Dr. Ghimire, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nitya Khanal, Webinar Committee Chairperson, NAPA Webinar Committee Chairperson, valued NAPA members, advisory board members, esteemed speakers, panelists, moderator, and honored participants. Good evening to those joining from Nepal and other part of Asia, and good morning to those in America, and good afternoon in Ethiopia. Most countries in the world, including Nepal, are vulnerable to a range of weather anomalies such as erratic rainfall, droughts, etc. In Nepal's case, coupled with country's unique topography, these challenges are compounded by frequent geoclimatic disasters like landslide, flood, and earthquake. These threats have a profound impact on countries' infrastructure, agricultural productivity, food security, and rural livelihoods. We, a couple of weeks ago, witnessed an unprecedented flooding in Nepal. South China Morning Post reports that this flooding has compromised some of the Nepal's most critical infrastructure, including major highways and multi-million-dollar hydropower plants. 11 hydropower plants have generating 625 megawatt of energy have been damaged, costing some 3 billion rupees. The devastating flood left many people homeless and wiped out their hard-earned life-saving. Impacted over 88,000 acres of paddy field in Nepal, causing losses of total 3.5 billion rupees. This shows that Nepal's agri-food systems and rural livelihoods are under tremendous strain, and current policies and practices do not look sufficient to adapt to increasing climate variability. A paradigm shift is urgently needed. So this is the background that of the today's webinar on weather anomalies and geoclimatic disaster. And this webinar has been motivated by the interest from our members and stakeholders in Nepal, and also our own, own experiences and learning. Even though our discussion will focus on Nepal, but we are hoping the knowledge and information we share today will be applicable to other parts of the world which face similar challenges. So said, we are eager to hear from our panelists and critics, and I feel very proud and privileged welcoming you at this panel. I would like to congratulate the webinar committee led by Dr. Khanal and the webinar committee members for hosting this wonderful webinar. Welcome all to I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. Thank you. I hope you find today's webinar and discussion both insightful and inspiring. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Khanal.
Thank you, President Dr. Ghimire. Hello, everyone again. The webinar is being live streamed on Facebook. Sorry, someone is saying something.
Go ahead, I muted her.
webinar is being live streamed on Facebook and transcribed by Zoom AI companion. Thanks to NAPA General Secretary Dr. Ananta Acharya for doing that. I'd like to request Dr. Subodh Adhikari and Dr. Bharat Shrestha to facilitate the question and answers. And similarly to Subina Tripathi and Sabin Pokhrel to take important notes, especially of discussions in Nepali language that are not captured by AI companion. The panelists and all participants may use their language of choice in the deliberations. However, use of English language is encouraged to honor the participation by non-Nepali speakers in the webinar. The attendees may raise hands to ask questions directly or type their questions on the chat. So now I'd like to introduce the experts in the webinar panel. Unfortunately, one of our invited panelists, Dr. Binod Dawadi, could not make it to the webinar due to his health reason. Let's wish him a speedy recovery. At the same time, we are fortunate to have Dr. Vishnu Prasad Pandey, who accepted our request in such an ad hoc notice just few hours ago. I truly appreciate Dr. Pandey's benevolence. Dr. Pandey is a professor of Institute of Engineering, Tribhuvan University, Nepal. Dr. Pandey has expertise in water-induced disaster risk assessment, hydrological modeling, climate change impacts and adaptations in water, energy, food ecosystem nexus. All those are very relevant to today's webinar. Similarly, we have our panelist, Dr. Krishna Chandra Depkota here. Dr. Depkota is Vice Chairman of Policy and Planning Commission under the Gandaki Provincial Government of Nepal. He is a seasoned policy expert and disaster management professional. Our another panelist is Dr. Dinesh Paudel. Dr. Paudel is a professor of sustainable development at Appalachian State University, USA. His research on post-earthquake environmental and geopolitical changes and infrastructural turn in development in Nepal, Himalaya is very pertinent to the deliberations today. I'd like to introduce Dr. Keshav Bhattarai as a reviewer of the deliberations today. Dr. Bhattarai is a professor of geography at the University of Central Missouri. He has a diverse expertise and extensive experience of teaching, research, and professional practices in USA as well as in Nepal. Finally, I present to you Dr. Yadu Pokhrel as the moderator of the panel discussion. Dr. Pokhrel is a professor in Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, and Dr. Pokhrel holds title of Red Cedar Distinguished Professor at Michigan State University. Now over to you, Dr. Pokhrel.
Thank you, Dr. Kanal, for the great introduction, and namaste to everyone. So as Dr. Kanal has already introduced, we have a distinguished group of panelists today, including with expertise in climate science, water resource engineering, policy, sustainable development, and so on. So you have also heard about the topic, weather anomalies, geoclimatic disasters, and resilient agri-food and livelihood systems in Nepal. These are the keywords that we will be talking around today. And we will hear a lot, all the nitty-gritty of what's going on in Nepal in the Himalayan region. But I would like to start by presenting a very quick kind of spend a minute or two about what is climate change, what's happening, and why we are talking about this topic today. So climate is changing. There is sufficient and growing evidence that temperatures are rising, and climate change is not temperature rise, but temperatures are rising globally, and records show that in the Himalayan region and Nepal, temperature rises are twice of the global average. This is a lot. And at the same time, when temperature goes up, the air above us gets the capacity to hold more water vapor. So when we have more water vapor, it would be nice if that would come down in an uniform way or whenever we like or whenever we need. But that doesn't happen. What happens is sometimes we get very long dry spells, droughts. That is what's happening on the opposite side of the world of Nepal. Brazil right now is facing from extreme droughts. All the farmers are facing from extreme droughts. And sometimes we also get a downpour like what Dr. Gimire mentioned earlier, just a couple of weeks ago in Nepal. And that caused devastating floods, leading to loss of life, infrastructure, and also significant impact on agricultural and food systems. Of course, we don't want to lose any single life, and that is always, you see that in the news. And if a critical infrastructure is damaged, there's a havoc created, and we hear that in the news as well. But not so much about the agri-food systems. There could be, local resource poor, technologically poor farmers suffering from these disasters, and they don't have the resilience or the capacity to cope with these kinds of disasters. So now let me get to the point. How is climate change, which is a global phenomenon, shaping hydroclimatic disasters in the Himalayan region, particularly Nepal, and how is that impacting the agri-food systems and local livelihoods? That's the kind of overall overview of what we'll be talking about. And without further ado, let me go into the questions. What we will do is we have some preset questions that we will ask to the panelists. And we would like the panelists to, limit their answers to about 3 minutes, but of course not more than 5 minutes. And we can have some follow-up questions, or if another panelist has something very relevant, please feel free to jump in before we move on to the second question or another question. But I'd like to start with the first question that goes to Dr. Pandey. As I said, weather extremes such as floods and droughts are intensifying globally, and in the Himalayan region, climate change or temperature rises are higher than global average. In this context, how is climate change reshaping weather extremes and geoclimatic hazards? And if you could place this in the context of the recent flood in Nepal, that would be appreciated, Dr. Pandey.
Thanks, Dr. Patel and the entire organizing team for this opportunity. It's my pleasure. To answer the questions, if we try to see the recent events dating back to July and August 2021, we had Melamchi flood. Then we had Thame flood recently in August 2024. And the other disaster event, Dr. Gimide already mentioned about the September 26 to 28 heavy downpour and associated disaster across the Nepal, which took life of nearly 250 lives across the Nepal. So this indicates that the extreme events are increasing in terms of number and also becoming more costlier than what used to be before. But the attribution to climate, if we try to see, Melamchi flood has been attributed to the climate change, as evident by the temperature rise in the days, some days before the event of the flood. It was induced by the Gulf event. Similarly to the Thane flood, it was also induced by the Gulf, but in addition to that, it also cascaded further when it went downstream by scouring the beds and the banks of the rivers immediately below the downstream of the glacier lake. It was a similar case in Melamchi as well. In regards to the recent flood across the Nepal associated with the heavy rainfall, we are yet to make an attribution to climate change. Perhaps it might be related to it, but we should be very cautious when attributing to the climate change, because when we interviewed some of the elderly people, they mentioned that even in 2030s, when we talk about Bikram Samad, there was even heavier flood than this one in the Kathmandu Valley had experienced. At that time, there was no climate change on the scene. Therefore, what I believe is climate change has certainly increased the number of these extreme events, and also they have made the things costlier for the disaster. But we should be very careful while attributing to the climate change. In addition to that, it has brought another dimension. We should not look the disaster from a single hazard perspective, because Now they are cascading and compounding the thing. That has brought a new dimension recently with the climate change and associated increase in the magnitude as well as the number of the disaster events. Perhaps I will stop here for the time being unless you have the additional questions.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pandey. Yeah, you brought this cascading and compounding events in relation to that. Could you tell us a little bit more about these, specifics of how or what are the key manifestations and impacts of climate change on the agri-food system? You said this could be climate change, or part of this could be climate change, but it's happening. It's being compounded, right? So what are, the key or major impacts of these kinds of events on Nepal's agri-food system? And are these impacts, let's say, well assessed? I mentioned earlier, when there's a critical infrastructure damage or loss of life, of course, that has to be a priority. But are these, what are the impacts, and are these assessed and documented compared to the impacts on other sectors of the society?
No, many times when we talk about the agri-food system, they have been focused on crops only, and that should not be the case. There are other components or attributes of the food system, food as well. When you talk about the system, it's not about production; it is linked to the entire market system as well. So in each and every, stage of the entire agri-food system, climate change impacts differently. For example, if we try to see in terms of inputs, water is a key input to the agricultural system, agri-food system. So if we see the recent realization by the global leaders in COP, I think 2026 or 27, they realized that climate crisis is water crisis. Therefore, climate change has been manifested in different sectors through water as a medium. That should be the key for the discussion, I believe. So in terms of water, we can easily see the impact, especially if we try to relate to the context of Nepal in the Himalayan system feeding to the water system in Nepal. With the increase in temperature, which has been observed from varying degrees, some of the literature, if you take a 2023 literature by Kharga et al., 0.02 to 0.16 degrees Celsius per year increase in temperature has already been observed. It means that it has impacts on melting of the snow glaciers that we have in the water towers of the Asia or the Himalayan system. So when it changes in terms of water availability, like amount, timing, and also in terms of water quality, they have direct link to the agricultural system. And that's a water link. Second thing is when there is a changes or variation in temperature, crops during their growth cycle, it has direct impact, either in terms of inadequate opportunity for growth or maybe captured by insects. And those kind of things also impact the growth of crop and ultimately impacts on crop yield, which has the direct implication to the food security. Third thing we can see is if we forget about the crop for the time being and move to the other component of the food system, for example, fish and other, when there is impact on water quality with the increasing disaster events associated impact on water quality, and they are brought up to the areas where we grow the fish, then it has a large impact or negative consequence in the feed production, which is a larger component sometime in the food system. So if we try to see all this together, is impact on agro-food system is not only a crop, it is beyond that. It is not only in terms of input, that is beyond that. And also sometimes it has a link even to the market system, because agri-food system, it has a link from production to the market. When there is a less production for this or that reason, with the climate consequences, food price goes up. So it has a link to entire economy as well. So this should be looked from a holistic perspective. That's what I believe.
Thank you. I wanted to move on to policy aspect, but I will ask you one more question because it's your core expertise, water resource management, and also you said it's not just the crop system. In that context, climate smart agriculture has been heavily discussed and has been heavily or implemented in different parts of the world. In the context of Nepal, I have a question about the policy side of that to Dr. Devkota in a moment, but Dr. Pandey, could you shed a light on, how this is working or whether climate smart agriculture has been implemented in Nepal, and are there key aspects, some of the key elements of this in the context of Nepal?
This, you see, the climate smart agriculture, with the climate change in the forefront of each and everything, either in policy or in the program design or the national priorities, it has been climate smart agriculture has been hotly discussed topics. And I'm now in the field in the eastern part, and with one of the projects, evaluation, and that also has a climate smart component in it. There are two things they are basically looking in the climate smart agriculture. One is about crop rotation. How about the possibility of the crop rotation so that from the same agricultural land, we can have the total higher yield in a year. Second component, they are focusing on how, because the realization of climate change has a primary impact on water, and then it is manifested in crops and other sectors. How can we grow and maybe scale out and scale up the varieties of crop which are resistant to the water, or maybe with the less water intensive? These are the two aspects they are working on that. In addition to that, when climate impacts to a sector or an individual or a community, then the other component is the adapting to that. So in addition to those two core components, they are focusing on the livelihood and increasing their social networks and access to resource and all those sort of things. They are affecting or maybe strengthening not only from a climate smart agriculture perspective, but overall resilience enhancement. So these are the things they are focusing on the climate resilient agriculture system.
Thank you very much. We'll come back to some of the important points that you have raised if we have time a little later, but I would like to move on to a little bit of policy side. And Dr. Devkota, my first question is not, explicitly on policy, building on what Dr. Pandey has just said. Climate smart agriculture, and there's a need to, deal with this in a holistic way, water resource management, crop systems, and then policy, financing, all of these need to be considered in a holistic manner. So based on your experience and rich knowledge, could you tell us a little bit on how is climate smart agriculture used in Nepal to enhance the resilience of agricultural and food systems, and what are some challenges or barriers that are hindering climate smart agricultural practices in Nepal?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me speak in Nepali most of the time. Thank you very much, Professor Pokhrel. Climate smart agriculture is, these days, this is very much fundamental issues for the Nepal government as well. But promotion of climate resilient crop variety is a little bit challenging here, but climate smart initiative focused generally introducing drought tolerance and flood resistant crops to adapt the country's diverse and changing climatic condition. Means already हाम्रो Dr. Professor पाण्डेले भन्नुभयो कि हामी कहाँ चाहिँ यो डिजास्टर इभेन्टहरू बढिरहेको ड्यू टु दि क्लाइमेट चेन्ज इम्प्याक्ट. सो त्योसँग चाहिँ अलिकति रेजिलियन्स हुने खाले त्यसलाई चाहिँ अलिक टोलरेट गर्ने खाले चाहिँ हाम्रो एग्रिकल्चर एक्टिभिटी चाहिँ एग्रिकल्चरको एक्टिभिटी चाहिँ हामीले गर्न थालेका छौँ. म अहिले सेन्ट्रल गभर्मेन्टमा नभएर प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टको पोलिसी लिड गर्ने ठाउँमा छु र हामीले यहाँ पनि गण्डकी प्रोभिन्समा पनि हाम्रो गण्डकी प्रोभिन्सको चाहिँ क्लाइमेटिक सिचुएसनलाई हेरेर हामीले नेपाल गभर्मेन्टले अलरेडी 2021बाट 2050सम्मको यो नेसनल एडप्टेसन प्लान अलरेडी छ. बेस्ड अन द्याट फ्रेमवर्क Nepal government is working for the climate resilient climate resilient development planning, focusing on agriculture as well. त्यो एउटा कुरो भने अर्को सस्टेनेबल वाटर म्यानेजमेन्टको प्र्याक्टिस पनि हामी कहाँ चाहिँ भइराखेको छ. त्यसमा चाहिँ यसले चाहिँ इरिगेसन सिस्टमलाई चाहिँ अलिकति चाहिँ अहिलेको कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ मोडर्नाइज गर्ने र चाहिँ यो क्लाइमेट फ्रेन्डली एग्रिकल्चर क्रप्स प्रोडक्सनमा चाहिँ सपोर्ट गर्ने. अर्को कुरा छ भने अर्को एग्रो फोरेस्ट्री र सोइल कन्जर्भेसन टेक्निक्स त्यो पनि उत्तिकै इम्पोर्टेन्ट चिज रहेको छ र यसमा पनि काम भइरहेको छ. त्यसै गरी क्यापासिटी बिल्डिङ एन्ड नलेज डिसिमिनेसन, यो क्यापासिटी बिल्डिङ चाहिँ गभर्मेन्ट को एजेन्सिजदेखि लिएर चाहिँ हामीले फार्मरलाई एडुकेट गर्नेसम्म लेभलसम्मको जसले सस्टेनेबल एग्रिकल्चर प्र्याक्टिसेसको लागि चाहिँ सपोर्ट गर्छ. यो 4-5वटा कुरामा चाहिँ क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चरको लागि चाहिँ काम भइरहेको अवस्था छ. एज ए यो प्लानिङ कमिसन अथवा पोलिसीको हिसाबले चाहिँ हामी कहाँ पोलिसीहरू चाहिँ जुन अहिलेको चेन्जिङ कन्टेक्स्टको लागि एडप्ट हुने खाले पोलिसी त्यसलाई एडप्ट गर्ने खाले पोलिसीमा चाहिँ काम भइरहेको र केही चाहिँ इम्प्लिमेन्टेसनमा नि गएको अवस्था छ। अब च्यालेन्जेस ब्यारियर हेऱ्यो भने लिमिटेड एक्सेस छ होइन, त्यसरी इनएफिसिएन्ट इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चरले यो एग्रिकल्चर र इरिगेसनको बिचको चाहिँ यो कोअर्डिनेसन पनि राम्रोसित गर्न नसकेको अवस्था छ। अर्को क्लाइमेट भेरिएबिलिटीले चाहिँ गर्दा चाहिँ यो अनप्रेडिक्टेबल वेदर प्याटर्न्स जे छ त्यसले चाहिँ ठुलो चाहिँ क्षति पुर्याउने, जुन रेगुलर प्याटर्नमा चाहिँ हामीले जे तयारी गरेका थियौँ एक्सट्रिम वेदर हुँदा एक्सट्रिम रेनफल हुँदाको कन्डिसन्समा चाहिँ त्यसले पार्ने क्षतिको लागि हामी प्रिपेयर नै हुन नसकेको, ती चाहिँ हाम्रा लिमिटेसन्सहरू भयो। त्यसै गरी अरू सोसियो इकोनोमिक कन्स्ट्रेन्ट्सहरू पनि छन्, चाहिँ हाम्रो कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ एकदमै प्रिभेल गरिरहेको अवस्था चाहिँ छ।
धन्यवाद, थ्याङ्क यू डाक्टर देवकोटा। मैले एउटा नेपालीमै त्यसमा फलोअप इरिगेसनको एकदम इम्पोर्टेन्ट कुरा लिएर आउनुभयो, इरिगेसन एज क्लाइमेट चेन्ज एडाप्टेसन भनेर चाहिँ युएसमा पनि अस्ट्रेलिया विभिन्न ठाउँहरूमा रेन फेड एग्रिकल्चर जहाँ छ त्यहाँ चाहिँ इरिगेसनलाई क्लाइमेट चेन्ज एडाप्टेसनको रूपमा लिएर आउने भन्ने कुरा चाहिँ यो अहिलेको एउटा जल्दोबल्दो टपिकै हो। अब त्यसमा विभिन्न च्यालेन्ज ठाउँ हेरिकन विभिन्न च्यालेन्जेसहरू छ। नेपालमा यो च्यालेन्ज टेक्नोलोजी हो कि अथवा फाइनेन्सिङ हो कि कस्तो खालको चाहिँ पर्टिकुलर च्यालेन्ज छ होला इरिगेसनलाई एक्सप्यान्ड गर्नको लागि?
यो हामी कहाँ फाइनेन्सिङ पनि प्रब्लम हो, टेक्नोलोजी ल्याउने कुरा पनि प्रब्लम हो, र अर्को चाहिँ यसलाई चाहिँ लिएर आउनको लागि हामीको जुन अहिलेको आजको बेलाको चाहिँ जुन एक्जिस्टिङ पोलिसी छ त्यो पनि च्यालेन्ज हो। त्यो दुई तिनवटा च्यालेन्जले गर्दा चाहिँ हामीले यसलाई चाहिँ इफेक्टिभली इम्प्लिमेन्टेसनमा लान नसकेको अवस्था छ, बट वी सुड ब्रिङ इट एज सुन एज पोसिबल।
Okay, thank you. For the audience, if you have questions, please feel free to type those on the chat box, and we have moderators who will summarize, and we will take those questions as well as we go. And the next question goes to Dr. Devkota. Dr. Devkota, I'm gonna say this question in English. Please feel free to switch to Nepali. And this is kind of related to what you have already said. What are some of the existing policies on climate resilient agricultural systems? You have said a few things already, and have they been effectively implemented? And if not, or if there are gaps, what are those gaps or challenges right now?
एक्चुअली हामीसँग चाहिँ 4-5वटा पोलिसी, वी हेभ 4-5 policies related to agriculture or climate smart agriculture in Nepal. But the first त हामीसँग नेसनल एडप्टेसन प्रोग्राम अफ एक्सन नापा भन्ने थियो, र अहिले चाहिँ अहिले पनि मैले सर्टली भनेको थिएँ नेसनल एडप्टेसन प्लान न्याप छ हामीसँग, जसले चाहिँ 2050 सम्मको चाहिँ यो रिजिलियन्स क्लाइमेट रिजिलियन्स डेभलपमेन्टमा काम गर्छ। त्यसले चाहिँ प्रायोरिटिज एरियाहरू क्लियरली चाहिँ आइडेन्टिफाई गरेको छ। त्यसमा क्लियरली मेन्सन छ सस्टेनेबल एग्रिकल्चर, वाटर म्यानेजमेन्ट एन्ड डिजास्टर रिस्क रिडक्सन। यसले चाहिँ यो न्यापले चाहिँ बेसिकली भलनरेबल कम्युनिटीको लागि चाहिँ मोर सपोर्ट गर्छ, र त्यो चाहिँ लोकलाइज एडप्टेसन मेजर्स चाहिँ हामीले प्रयोग गर्छौँ भन्ने छ। त्यो भनेको डाउन टु दि कम्युनिटीसम्म चाहिँ यसले चाहिँ यो क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चरको लागि पनि काम गर्ने भन्ने चाहिँ नेसनल एडप्टेसन प्लान जो 2021 to 2050 30 इयर्सको बनाएको छ, यसमा क्लियरली मेन्सन छ। यसको चाहिँ अहिले प्रोभिन्सियल लेभलमा पनि डाउन स्केलिङ हुँदै लोकल लेभलसम्म जानुपर्ने भएको हुनाले यो काम चाहिँ अगाडि बढेको छ। एउटा यो पोलिसी यो स्टार्टिङ फेज फर 30 इयर्स, बट इट वर्क्स इन द राइट डिरेक्सन। अनदर हामीसँग क्लाइमेट चेन्ज पोलिसी नै छ 2019मा आएको, यसले पनि यो क्लाइमेट रिजिलियन्ट एग्रिकल्चरलाई नै प्रमोट गर्छ। अरू धेरै सेक्टरलाई सपोर्ट गर्ने त भइहाल्यो, यसको लागि चाहिँ बेसिकली हामीले एग्रिकल्चरको सेक्टरमा हेऱ्यौँ भने क्लाइमेट रिजिलियन्ट एग्रिकल्चर हुन्छ। यसले चाहिँ बेसिकली क्लाइमेट रिजिलियन्टलाई चाहिँ यो सस्टेनेबल एग्रिकल्चर प्र्याक्टिसलाई चाहिँ मोर सपोर्ट गर्ने खाले चाहिँ हाम्रो यो क्लाइमेट चेन्ज पोलिसी छ भने यसले चाहिँ इन्स्टिट्युसनल स्ट्रेन्थनिङको कुरा नि गर्छ। अहिले चाहिँ कस्तो छ भने यो पोलिसीमा चाहिँ हामी कहाँ यो क्लाइमेट चेन्ज पोलिसी भनेपछि यो फरेस्ट सेक्टरको मात्रै हो भन्ने त्यस्तो खाले अनुभूति बढी छ नेपालमा चाहिँ। त्यस कारणले यसलाई चाहिँ अलिकति यो चाहिँ फरेस्ट सेक्टरलाई मात्रै नभएर अरू सबै सेक्टरमा यसको इम्प्याक्ट हुने, एग्रिकल्चरमा चाहिँ झनै भिजिबल इम्प्याक्ट देखिरहेको सन्दर्भमा चाहिँ यसलाई चाहिँ पोलिसी लिड गर्ने सिचुएसन चाहिँ अहिले नट ओन्ली फ्रम द फरेस्ट इट सुड गो टु द अदर पोलिसी लिड इन्स्टिट्युसन विच क्यान टु अल मिनिस्ट्रिज भन्ने छ। त्यसलाई कोर्डिनेसन गर्न नेसनल प्लानिङ कमिसन होला अथवा प्राइम मिनिस्टर अफिस होला, कतै चाहिँ यो सिफ्ट हुन पर्छ कि भन्ने बहस सुरु भएको छ। यो चाहिँ क्लाइमेट चेन्ज पोलिसीको कुरा हो जसले एग्रिकल्चर सेक्टरलाई चाहिँ क्लियरली सपोर्ट गर्ने, तर लङ रेन्जमा अलि वाइडर रेन्जमा हेर्यो भने चाहिँ सबै सेक्टरमा क्लाइमेट चेन्जको इम्प्याक्ट देखिएको छ। सबै सेक्टरको क्लाइमेट चेन्ज इम्प्याक्ट हेर्ने भनेको छ, तर यो फरेस्ट मिनिस्ट्रीमा भएको हुनाले अलिकति यसको च्यालेन्ज पनि छ। मैले यो चिज च्यालेन्ज सुरुमै भने अर्को छ हामीसित लापा भन्ने अर्को लोकल एडप्टेसन प्लान फर एक्सन, जसले चाहिँ क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर प्र्याक्टिस चाहिँ लोकल लेभलमा इट फोकस टु द लोकल लेभल त्यसमा काम गर्छ। यसले चाहिँ अर्को चाहिँ यो रिजनल भल्नरेबिलिटी जो छ त्यसमा चाहिँ ड्राउट टोलरेन्स क्रप्स र इम्प्रुभ इरिगेसन सिस्टम लाई चाहिँ सँगै लिएर चाहिँ काम गर्नुपर्छ भन्ने छ यसमा भने। अर्को हामीसित यो हुन्छ, यो चाहिँ पोलिसी चाहिँ ठ्याक्कै होइन, प्रोजेक्ट हो। प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स एग्रिकल्चर मोडर्नाइजेसन प्रोजेक्ट भन्ने छ। यो मोडर्नाइजेसन प्रोजेक्टले चाहिँ मोडर्न एग्रिकल्चर टेक्नोलोजिजहरू जे छ, अहिले हामीले इरिगेसन सिस्टमको पनि कुरा गरेका छौँ, त्यो चिजलाई चाहिँ यहाँ लिएर आएर चाहिँ यो हामी कहाँको एग्रिकल्चर क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर जुन अहिले क्लाइमेट इम्प्याक्टले जुन एग्रिकल्चर सेक्टरमा चाहिँ डिफिकल्टिजहरू देखिएको छ, भिजिबल चाहिँ प्रब्लमहरू, त्यसलाई चाहिँ सिडको इम्प्रुभ गर्नेदेखि लिएर इफिसियन्ट वाटर युज गर्ने सम्मको कुरा गरेको छ। स्टिल वी आर फेसिङ च्यालेन्ज टु ब्रिङ द गुड टेक्नोलोजी अराउन्ड द वर्ल्ड। अर्को छ हामीसँग यो क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर इन्भेस्टमेन्ट प्लान। यसले पनि एग्रिकल्चर सेक्टरमा चाहिँ एग्रिकल्चरको चाहिँ हाम्रो ठाउँ हेरिकन चाहिँ यसलाई चाहिँ इम्प्रुभ गर्न सक्ने ठाउँमा चाहिँ इम्प्रुभ गर्ने भन्छ। अर्को चाहिँ यो हामीले जुन नेसनल एडप्टेसन प्लान र चाहिँ यो लोकल एडप्टेसन प्लानसँगै यो प्राइम मिनिस्टर एग्रिकल्चर मोडर्नाइजेसन प्लान जे छ, प्रोजेक्ट जे छ, यसलाई चाहिँ अलिकति इन्ट्रिग्रेटेड वेमा गयो भने हामीले एग्रिकल्चरको लागि चाहिने हाम्रो इरिगेसन सिस्टम जुन पनि मैले पहिला भने बाहिरबाट इम्प्रुभ जुन मोडर्न टेक्नोलोजी लिएर आएर चाहिँ त्यसलाई चाहिँ इरिगेसन सिस्टमलाई चाहिँ इन्हान्स गर्न सक्यो भने एग्रिकल्चर क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर र यसमा चाहिँ काम गर्न सकिन्छ र च्यालेन्ज पनि यही हो भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ नेपालमा।
थ्याङ्क यू डाक्टर देवकोटा। सानो एउटा फलोअप क्वेसन गरेँ, यसमा चाहिँ विभिन्न एकदमै महत्त्वपूर्ण कुराहरू ल्याउनु भयो। एनआइपीको कुरा, त्यसपछि लापा, त्यसपछि गएर प्राइम मिनिस्टर्स एग्रिकल्चर मोडर्नाइजेसन प्रोजेक्टको कुरा भयो। अनि यसमा मैले सुनेको अनुसार अब विभिन्न फार्मर्सहरूलाई सब्सिडीको कुरा, अब इरिगेसनको नयाँ टेक्नोलोजी ल्याउने हो भने, इरिगेसन अडप्ट गर्ने हो भने चाहिँ सब्सिडीको कुराहरू, अथवा रिन्युएबल एनर्जी सोलर सिस्टममा जाने हो भने त्यसमा सब्सिडीको दिने कुराहरू विभिन्न छन् त्यहाँ। त्यसमा यसको यो नेसनल लेभल, लोकल लेभल र अहिले यो आएको पिएएमपीको बिचको कोअर्डिनेसन कति छ, कतिको इफेक्टिभ छ, त्यसमा अलिकति प्रश्नाइदिनुहुन्थ्यो कि?
एक्चुअली कोअर्डिनेसन इज द बिगेस्ट प्रब्लम हियर इन नेपाल, हामी सबैलाई थाहा भएको कुरा। तर यद्यपि हामीसँग एउटा टिम छ, नेसनल गभर्मेन्ट, फेडरल गभर्मेन्ट, प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्ट र लोकल गभर्मेन्ट। त्यो चाहिँ स्पेसली प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्ट र नेसनल गभर्मेन्टको बिचको चाहिँ कोअर्डिनेसन चाहिँ होस् भनेर हाम्रो फेडरल गभर्मेन्टको जुन मिनिस्टर हुनुहुन्छ, रिलेटेड मिनिस्टर, अब कृषि मन्त्रालयको मन्त्रीको अध्यक्षतामा चाहिँ 7वटै प्रोभिन्सको चाहिँ मन्त्री भएको एउटा चाहिँ कमिटी छ, जसले चाहिँ सङ्घ र प्रदेश, फेडरल गभर्मेन्ट र प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टको बिचको चाहिँ कोअर्डिनेसन ग्याप छ, त्यसलाई चाहिँ फुलफिल गर्ने भन्ने। र हाम्रो प्रोभिन्स र चाहिँ लोकल गभर्मेन्टको बिचमा पनि हाम्रो यो प्रदेश विकास समस्या समाधान समिति भन्ने छ। अर्को चाहिँ यो प्रदेशको चाहिँ यो अर्को चाहिँ एउटा कमिटी छ जुन चाहिँ अन्तर प्रदेशको बिचको प्रब्लम पनि सल्भ गर्ने, र प्रदेशमै पनि अर्को यो परिषद छ, स्थानीय तह र सङ्घ प्रदेश सरकार बिचको चाहिँ जुन चाहिँ कोअर्डिनेसन ग्याप छ त्यसलाई फुलफिल गर्नको लागि अर्को कमिटी छ। यी कमिटीहरू मार्फत चाहिँ समस्याहरूमाथि छलफल चाहिँ हुन्छ होइन, र समाधानको उपायहरू पनि त्यहाँ चाहिँ सुल्झाइएको चाहिँ हुन्छ, रेकमेन्डेसन गरेको हुन्छ। तर लिड गर्नुपर्ने अहिलेको कन्टेक्स्टमा हाम्रो यो फेडरलाइजेसनको चाहिँ सुरुको स्टेजमा भएर होला सम्भवतः फेडरल गभर्मेन्टबाट प्रोभिन्सियल र लोकल अथवा फेडरलबाट सिधै लोकल र फेडरलबाट चाहिँ प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टमा जे चिजहरू चाहिँ कोअर्डिनेसन हुनुपर्ने डकुमेन्टेसन भएको पनि तर चाहिँ त्यसलाई चाहिँ इफेक्टिभली हस्तान्तरण ट्रान्सफर्मेसन पनि भइ नसकेको अवस्था छ। त्यसको लागि चाहिँ छलफल संवाद चाहिँ सबै सेक्टरमा भएको छ। एग्रिकल्चर सेक्टरमा चाहिँ पनि त्यति नै भइरहेको अवस्था चाहिँ छ, नभएको चाहिँ होइन। त्यसरी त्यो ग्याप्स र च्यालेन्जेसलाई चाहिँ हामीले कोअर्डिनेसन मार्फत पाउने प्रयास चाहिँ जारी छ र यो मलाई लाग्छ अझ मोर इफेक्टिभली चाहिँ यसलाई अगाडि बढाउनुपर्छ भन्ने चाहिँ महसुस चाहिँ प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टले चाहिँ म यहाँ बसेर देखिरहेको छु र भइरहेको अवस्था चाहिँ छ।
Dhanyavad. Thank you very much. I'll ask my last question to Dr. Devkota, which is related to a lot of the discussion that's happening or a lot of the things that have been mentioned. But this question is particularly on reformative versus transformative policies. Dr. Devkota, if you could shed light or tell a little bit more about reformative versus transformative policies, are there any implementations on these two types of policies, or is there a need to go for one or the other to enhance climate resilience in the agri-food system in Nepal?
हामी कहाँ यो दुवै चिज चाहिँ आवश्यक छ होइन। अब अहिले चाहिँ हामीले अलिकति रिफर्मेटिभ भन्ने यो कन्टेक्स्ट नयाँ हामी कहाँ जुन हामी सङ्घीय संरचनामा गइरहेका छौँ यो कन्टेक्स्टलाई चाहिँ हामीले डेभलपमेन्टको पेससँग ग्लोबल्ली हामी डेभलपमेन्टलाई जसरी चाहिँ छलफल गर्छौँ। अहिले हजुरहरू संसारको सबभन्दा चाहिँ मोडर्न कन्ट्री मध्येको बस्नुहुन्छ भने म चाहिँ अहिले चाहिँ एकदमै डेभलपिङ कन्ट्री जहाँ बसेर पोलिसी लिड गर्ने प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टको ठाउँमा बसेर कुरा गर्दैछु। यो दुईटाको बिचलाई यसरी हेऱ्यो भने हामीले चाहिँ यसलाई लिएर चाहिँ नेपालको डेभलपमेन्टलाई चाहिँ हेर्ने हो भने हामीलाई चाहिँ अलिकति यो अलि चाँडै नै ट्रान्सफर गर्ने खाले पोलिसी चाहिँ आवश्यक छ, जसको लागि चाहिँ गभर्मेन्टको जुन इन्स्टिट्युसनल मेकानिजम छ त्यो चाहिँ रेडी छैन। किनकि हाम्रो अहिलेको त्यो किन रेडी छैन भने हामीले त्यो एउटा इन्स्टिट्युसन मात्रै रेडी हुन्छु भनेर पनि नहुनेछ। किनकि यो सबै तहको सरकार अनि सबै चाहिँ होरिजेन्टल र भर्टिकल लिङ्केज जे हुनुपर्ने हो त्यो होरिजेन्टल र भर्टिकल लिङ्केज चाहिँ सिस्टमाइज आजको भोलि हुन नसक्ने रहेछ। त्यस कारणले चाहिँ हामीले यसलाई एकदमै ऱ्यापिड ट्रान्सफर्मेसन गर्न सक्ने अवस्था पनि छैन। त्यस कारणले यसलाई चाहिँ बिस्तारै तर छिटो गतिमा चाहिँ लानुपर्ने आवश्यकता चाहिँ मैले देख्छु। This is my experience.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Devkota. That's a lot of insight for us. I would like to move on to another topic, which is on research and development. And these questions are targeted for Dr. Dinesh Paudel. So the first question is, what are some of the critical needs in research and capacity development or capacity building to address climate impacts on Nepal's agri-food system? We have talked about the impacts of climate change and cascading impacts, compounding disasters, and then there are different aspects of policies that have been placed. So in terms of research and development, what kinds of innovations are critical, and where are gaps and needs in the context of Nepal? Dr. Paudel.
Namaskar, Dhanyavad sir. Thank you so much. It's so good to be with such a great group of people talking about this research, climate, food security, food production in Nepal. I come from a little different background, so probably my answer to this would be probably a bit different. There are enough research done already to show that climate change impacts are enormous, obviously, but we also need to do a lot, very specific kind of research in Nepal and the Himalayan region. As you said, the climate change impacts are double than average in other places. One of the ICIMOD reports actually writes that it's actually 3 times. So there are pockets and differences, especially high altitude areas. The impacts are even higher than, and maybe we even do not know that much. But the climate change is considered as one kind of technical study kind of site, which probably is problematic. Climate change impacts are very comprehensive, and that requires that type of intervention. For example, if we take the recent flooding in Nepal, obviously climate change has enormous, huge impact, but also there are other things like, if you look at where these floodings happened, these happened in urban and peri-urban areas. It did not happen in remote, far away kind of areas. That indicates that there are other human factors that are contributing enormously to this, triggered by climate change as well, which sometimes I call it dozer terrorism, dozer atanka. Dozer atanka is a big part of kind of flooding, disaster, but also impacts on food production and agriculture system in Nepal. Dozer atanka indicates not only infrastructure, but literally dozer, but also the symbolic to the way we are thinking about development and advancement. अनि भर्खरै हाम्रो कृष्ण देवकोटाजीले तपाईँहरू त एडभान्स देशमा बस्ने, हामी यहाँ भर्खर भर्खर उ गर्दैछौँ भनेपछि मलाई एउटा भर्खरै याद आयो। म अहिले बसेको ठाउँमा चाहिँ एउटा ठुलो हुरिकेन गएको थियो, हेलेन भन्ने। यसले धेरै यहाँ डिस्ट्रोय गर्यो। यहाँ मेरो त युनिभर्सिटी पनि बन्द छ अहिलेसम्म। यसबाट मलाई के फिल भयो भने हामी त really seriously much more resilient रहेछौँ नेपालमा, र we are really better off in terms of how we handle disaster, we handle changes, we handle climate भन्ने चाहिँ नि मलाई परेको छ। यहाँको सोसाइटल सिचुएसन, यहाँका चाहिँ मान्छेहरूले जसरी ह्यान्डल गरे त्यो देख्दा त we are better off. So Krishnaji, don't think in that level that you are at the top, we are at the bottom. I think we are parallel, and we have a lot of good things that we can do better in Nepal. So let's not put in that hierarchical context that you are there, you are here kind of way, because there are a lot of good practices of handling climate change in Nepal, and they were historical, indigenous, but also there are policy, community interventions that we should feel good and proud about. But when it comes to like food system related research, we should not think food production as a technical intervention. Recently I was in Ramesar district where I'm from. मेरो गाउँमा लिखु खोलाको किनारमा I bought vegetables and fruits. They were coming 90% or more of them coming from India and other countries. And then we are eating chicken from Brazil, and sungur from USA now, gunruk from Bhutan, and kodo from Tibet, which is unbelievable, and sinki from Korea, and a lot of things. It is not because you cannot produce those things in Nepal. It is because the kind of failed market system in agriculture has put Nepali production kind of downgraded, and that benefits certain business communities and actually puts the farmers down. So that we must bring these things in conversation while talking about food production and climate change. Similarly, the government support system has huge implication. Like when we say that we need kind of promoted food production and respond to climate, our focus of support is more on commercial type production systems rather than subsistence farmers and producers who contribute massively in our food system. Majority of like central government, कृष्णजीको प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्ट, पालिका, वडासम्मको त्यो बजेटहरू कृषिमा खर्च गर्ने चाहिँ जहाँ अलिअलि कमर्सियल प्रोडक्सन गर्ने, यसो प्रपोजल लेख्नेहरू कहाँ पुर्याउने, तर म्यासिभ रूपमा चाहिँ फुड प्रोडक्सनमा इन्भल्भ भएको फार्मर्सहरूमा नपुग्ने सिस्टम, र त्यो द्याट वी डिफाइन एज अ मोडर्न फार्मिङ, मोडर्न एग्रिकल्चर, एन्ड वी आर connecting that only to the market, not the everyday sufficient food producers. So हाम्रोमा ठुलो lacking छ, because we want to be modern, and for us modernity is being part of extractive market system. अब त्यसबाट draw गर्न नसक्ने हो भने remain victim of this food insecurity for a long time. We cannot simply say it's a take it for climate and others and think always as technical issue. Similar problems like out migration. Majority of hill villages are now out. In my village, about 70% people left last 10 years. 10 years in nothing. But a lot of people say that in next 10 years, there will be hardly anyone. They will be there in that villages. They have lived about more than 50% of khet, like dhan ropne khet, are now left uncultivated. Majority of makai, kodo ropne almost like zero, like not even 70-80%, like zero production. So the outmigration is huge thing, which has led to massive another problem, which is wildlife kind of encroachment in farming area. I recently visited Diktel, and मैले चाहिँ हाम्रो सबै एउटा ठुलो ग्यादरिङमा हाम्रो जिल्लाका 5वटा मुख्य समस्या के होलान् भनेर मैले प्रश्न राख्दा एक मत सबैको त्यहाँ चाहिँ 150-150 को ग्यादरिङमा आयो बाँदर, यो चाहिँ आयो जङ्गली जनावरको आतङ्कले गर्दा हामी गाउँ छोडेर हिँड्नुपर्ने भयो, हामीले कृषिमा के गर्न सकेनौँ भन्ने एउटा ठुलो इस्यु आएको छ। यस्ता कुराहरूमा न अध्ययन छन् न चाहिँ केही भएको छन्। सिमिलरली चाहिँ नि त्यो होल सिस्टम चाहिँ कस्तो छ भने इभन अन्टरप्रेन्योरियल कमर्सियल प्रोडक्सन पनि the certain kind of external force based छन्, न कि farmers based production छैनन्, local entrepreneurship र collective production लाई कुनै ध्यान दिएको छैन। त्यो हुनाले I think these are some of the areas I think are equally important to think about climate, food, nexus, and agriculture production should be the main areas of interest for research. There are some studies that show that actually in upper area, the actual production is growing now because of the warmer climate. But in the mid-hill, production is going down because of the climate situation. The water availability is a big issue. Even there is no water even to drink, let alone for irrigation and others. So in general, I would put them as a kind of area of research that we must think for climate resilience, but also food production sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Podel. You've covered a lot of grounds here. I would also like to pose the same question, and I would like to have a brief answer from Dr. Pandey in terms of, research gaps, I would say gaps in research and also capacity building. And if you could shed light on some specific areas, for example, going for alternative crops, alternative practices, or, in case we are talking about disasters and compounding disasters. So are there any early warning systems, or has there been enough or any research done in that area? If you could shed some light on these topics.
Yeah,
thanks. Oh, sorry, you're asking me or?
Yes, no. Yeah, Dr. Pandey, yes.
Okay, thanks. No, agri-food system, like Professor Paudel mentioned, there has been many research globally. But if I have to tell about Nepal, there has been sporadic research, but when we see in a holistic way to cover the entire agri-food system and also the covering different spatial differences and altitudinal variation and associated climatic variation, there are typical differentiation across the different locations. So to represent the entire Nepal, we really need a big investment in research to understand in a more holistic way. That I feel is quite lacking here. That relates first in understanding the climate change itself. There are changing, global climate models are updating over the years. Now we already have CMIP6 model and SSP scenarios. Some studies have been done that. But if we try to relate that in terms of application by different sectors, we climate modelers would be able to develop a climate information system where we project the future projections, likely increase in temperature over the seasons, or maybe precipitation extremes, and so on across the Nepal, and spatial distribution information so that other people can use that. I think we need to start right from there. Then, secondly, we need to translate that in terms of risks to the different sector. If we talk about agro-food system, what exactly the risks of climate change means? Like I also mentioned, and Professor Porter also hinted that every impacts are not really related to climate change. We should be able to differentiate that. Attribution science, we are still weak in attributing to the impact of various impacts of the climate change. We should be very careful and analyze the risks, to what extent of the risk is related to climate. And third thing is, I think for all these things, it looks very simple, but needs a huge amount of resources. All the diaspora, Nepalese people, and also in our network, perhaps we can join hands together. For example, if there are 5 group of people working on climate change impacts or risks on the agro-food system in different locations of Nepal, and in the 2-3 years time, we try to integrate together, perhaps without any additional investment, without regular duties, we should be able to produce those results. And there's opportunity in that way. And if you link further, what next is we need to go to the adaptation strategies, right? There are NAPA, like Dr. Krishna Devgowda also mentioned that. We nearly need to critically evaluate that. There are many adaptation options are highlighted, but in which location, which options are more appropriate. We need to evaluate them and also prioritize them appropriately, especially linking the agro-food system. Therefore, there are a whole lot of things need to be done as a research because it's a never-ending process. I think these are the gaps in terms of linking to the agro-food system.
Thank you very much. Back to Dr. Podell. The next question is, we have talked about, need for research, capacity development, and, policies at different levels and so on. And also sometimes it's very important, and you have covered this a little bit already, it's important to not only impose some sort of technology or something based on research to, local communities, but rather we also need to go and, think about indigenous knowledge and how that can be integrated with technological innovation. So are there any aspects that you would highlight? Or if I directly pose the question, how could we integrate technological innovations and indigenous knowledge to address climate change in the agricultural sector?
Wonderful. This is a great question. And that integration is always a challenge because in integration, there should be some kind of horizontality, right? But the knowledge systems are so vertical, like the so-called technological modern and knowledge system always consider itself as top in the hierarchy. And the indigenous system is something that is backward. And then, there are always issues. So integration is never possible. It's all encroachment, or we must find some better ways to do that. So that's the case in forestry, that's the case in agriculture, even infrastructure development. What counts as knowledge is always a problem, and this has problem here as well. But one area that I really think the kind of modern understanding of production and then indigenous system of production that really can work together is actually on food production system. The reason is that majority of food supply for majority of people in Nepal and the Himalayan region, and in that case, entire mountain system around the world, comes from subsistence, farm, family-based, small-scale production. That must be respected as the main kind of starting point. And all other market-based, commercial, corporate production system, everything must be in parallel or in part with it rather than taking over them and kind of moving on from there. That's what's happening around the world, that technology-based food production systems always kind of, dominating other systems which are problematic, unsustainable, and disastrous. So in that sense, if we can figure out ways, what are the ways climate change is kind of impacting, especially in terms of creating disaster and water availability or water supply. And then other domain is this whole idea of infrastructure development. It's really becoming another source of disaster in Nepal. We are not really recognizing that much about this because we are so obsessed with infrastructure development. We need it, but at the same time, we are losing more by building roads. We are losing more lives by actually building something. We are losing more. We lost millions of dollars in Rosi River and Sutkosi River in last flood. Then what we got from this, the Dungagiti Baluakhani. But Dungagiti Baluakhani probably gave like a crore deo bhane, we lost like arabon. So we have these disjunctures, and that's where we need more intervention in research. And the third is how indigenous knowledge is essential, and local people who were saying that don't take this Dunga Khani out, don't do that for a long time, but we never listened. Why? Because we had this terrorism driven development ideals, and that does not work in the very fragile Himalayan system, and we imposed it. Now at the cost, right? So I would say that the answer is very general, but combination of actual climate impacts. The farmers are resilient too. They are, instead of like my mother, instead of iskus, which requires more water, she's putting something else because it doesn't require that much water. So we are not trying to understand those changes. She does not know climate change, but she's actually adapting, learning from it. And we researchers are not paying attention to that. So looking at very micro practices of farming families, how they are doing, and how these other developmental and external forces forcing us to do things differently. If we can find intersection and methodology to incorporate these two, would be wonderful area to start with.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pavel. Those are really great points. So we are covering a lot of grounds here, but also time is very limited. At this point, I would like to ask Dr. Bharat Shrestha and Subodh Adhikari to let us know if there are any converging questions. I have not been monitoring the chat entirely. Is there anything that we would like to discuss before we move on to the next stage, which is on a little bit on coordination, public-private partnerships, but we have covered so much already. We would like to take some questions from the audience.
Sure. Thank you so much, all. It's going great. I really enjoying it. I think there are a couple of questions. Maybe we can take those right now. Dr. Ramji Imre has asked, when we discuss about climate change and weather anomalies, we primarily infer or refer to crops only. But how about livestock and also other several key species of agri-food systems, which seems to be misleading. Also, tourism seems to be another sector impacted directly or indirectly. So she would like to know panelists' perspective on that.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Panelists, probably.
I can start by one
Okay,
recent
please.
observation. Yeah, that the livestock number has decreased like in some places like 1/10. It's like unbelievable. The reasons are multiple. One is out migration. There is no one to put buffaloes and cows there. Another reason, actually, very interestingly, is the lack of water. अब आहाल नै छैन, कहाँ लगेर भैँसीलाई के गर्ने? यस्तो यस्तो छ अलि पहाडको तिर चाहिँ यो चाहिँ डिरेक्ट इम्प्याक्ट अफ क्लाइमेट। त्यति मात्र होइन, त्यो चाहिँ नि अब मैले दोलखाको चाहिँ नि यो अस्ति भर्खरको एउटा कालिम्चोक एरियाको एउटा स्टडी अध्ययन गरेँ। के देखाउँदैछ भने चौरी दे आर मुभिङ अप एन्ड देयर इज नो स्पेस अप इज like this, right? So why? Because these grasses, they are growing in upper area and lower area is becoming more drier. So on wildlife though, I find it extremely dangerously scary situation because it has direct impact on food production. अब भैँसी पाल्न छोडेर कुखुरा मात्रै पालेर अथवा एउटा बोको मात्रै पालेपछि अब एग्रिकल्चरमा चाहिँ के इनपुट हुन्छ, कसरी त्यसले चाहिँ अर्ग्यानिक प्रोडक्सन हुन्छ, त्यो दे आर अल कनेक्टेड बिकज पिपल आर नट किपिङ देयर वाइल्ड एनिमल्स, द वाइल्ड एनिमल नम्बर इज ग्रोइङ एन्ड अल्सो दे आर नट युजिङ द फरेस्ट बिकज घाँस काट्नै जानु पर्दैन, अहिले दाउरै खोज्न जानु पर्दैन. द्याट हेज चेन्ज द इन्टायर इकोसिस्टम इट सेल्फ. So it's not only livestock, but the entire ecosystem is changing in a dramatic and very painful way.
Thank you. I'd like to move on to next question, and I will give the opportunity to Dr. Pandey and Depkota if there's anything they would like to add to this question also. But Dr. Adhikari, please move on to the next question.
Sure. I think there is another question, but which is specifically to Dr. Depkota. By Dr. Lila Karki. So would you see any scope as a government policy expert to use different diasporas expertise and experience such as this NAPA that can contribute to several aspects, including lowering the negative impact of such natural calamities on agriculture and so on? Dr. Depkota, if you are there.
Please unmute yourself in case you're muted.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, of course, there is the possibility of engaging, the diaspora for the, such kind of activities in Nepal through that. But we have that framework, right? र डायस्पोराले चाहिँ हामीलाई दुई तीनटा वेबाट सपोर्ट गर्न सक्ने म देख्छु. एउटा चाहिँ नलेज म्यानेजमेन्टमा नलेज सेयरिङ, जुन डायस्पोरासँग चाहिँ यो नलेज छ, डिफ्रेन्ट संसारभरि काम गर्ने, डिफ्रेन्ट लोकेसन्समा बसेर काम गर्नेले चाहिँ हामीसँग फेडरल गभर्मेन्ट र प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्ट. तर एउटा ब्यारियर के छ भने डाइरेक्ट कम्स टु दि प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टमा चाहिँ डाइरेक्टली यस्तो यो सफ्टवेयर टेक्नो यो कन्सल्टेसन वर्कसप यो सबै गर्न चाहिँ हामीलाई सक्छौँ योबाट पाउने सहयोग यसको लागि गर्न सक्ने सहयोग एउटा भयो तर प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टलाई डाइरेक्ट चाहिँ डायस्पोराको इन्गेजमेन्ट भनौँ जुन इन्टरनेसनल एड थ्रु आउने त्यो चाहिँ हामीले प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्टले गर्न सक्दैन त्यसको लागि हामीलाई चाहिँ सेन्ट्रल गभर्मेन्ट जुन फेडरल गभर्मेन्ट छ त्यसको एप्रुभल चाहिन्छ त्यस कारणले it can support through the federal government. Even that can be scaled down to the provincial and local government level. This is the way that you can, I mean, the diaspora can support to the Nepal for the climate resilient development, especially in agriculture sector and other sector as well.
Thank you, Dr. Devkota. Dr. Pandey, did you have anything to, I know you have done some research on livestock a little bit, I don't know, on tourism, but there was also mention of tourism. Would you like to say a few words on these areas?
Thanks. I don't have specific data and information on that one. But what I can say is I fully agree with the spirit I also mentioned when I was talking earlier, because food systems should not be considered primarily as a crop. There are other components in the food. And also food system is not only the production system, either livestock or crop. They are the part of the entire food chain. They would all need to be looked together. While saying that, but what the reality is a large part of the impacts or risks are related to the crop production system. Therefore, getting high emphasis on it is natural, but others should not be dropped out. Others should also be given appropriate attention. This is what I would like to add on here.
Thank you. Dr. Adhikari, any other questions? There's also a hand raised, please.
Yeah, in fact, I would like to go back to Dr. Devkota again because there was a follow-up question to him by Gehendra Gurung. I think we have policies, but they are not necessarily practical documents. For that, we need legal document, which we lack now. We need Climate Change Act. So maybe Dr. Devkota may respond if there are any efforts towards developing Climate Change Act at provincial level.
Dhanyavad. Again, to do that, first we should have the National Government Act. हामीसँग क्लाइमेट पोलिसी आइसकेको कन्टेक्स्टमा त्यसैले के एउटा म्यान्डेट दिएको छ भने सबै प्रादेशिक सरकारहरूले चाहिँ सङ्घीय सरकारको जुन एक्ट छ त्योसँग नबाजिने गरी चाहिँ प्रदेशको एक्टहरू बनाउन पाउने भन्ने चाहिँ संवैधानिक व्यवस्था छ हामी कहाँ र त्यसको लागि चाहिँ गण्डकी प्रदेशमा चाहिँ म आफै पनि यही क्लाइमेट डिजास्टर साइन्सको अलिक बढी एडभोकेसी गर्ने विद्यार्थी भएको हिसाबले हाम्रो यहाँ चाहिँ काम सुरु भएको छ वी आर सुन मेकिङ फ्रेमवर्क बनाउँदैछौँ हामी र त्यो चाहिँ यो हाम्रो क्लाइमेट यो प्रोभिन्सियल क्लाइमेट चेन्ज प्रोभिन्सियल इन्भाइरोमेन्ट एन्ड क्लाइमेट चेन्ज काउन्सिल पनि छ हामी कहाँ र त्यो काउन्सिलले चाहिँ यो एक्टको काम चाहिँ गरिरहेको अवस्था एक्टमा चाहिँ ड्राफ्ट गर्ने काम चाहिँ गरिरहेको अवस्था छ।
Thank you. Dr. Adhikari, I will pose almost the last question, and then we can take if there are burning questions, and then we'll go to wrap up because I believe we have about 10 minutes left before we move on to the synthesis of this webinar. There was a lot of mention of, or we talked about, technological interventions and indigenous knowledge and policies at the national, provincial, local levels and need for a horizontal structure, not always vertical. And also, and in relation to that, Dr. Devkota also just answered the question about engaging the diaspora and so on. So the next question is about engagement or the role and contribution of international development agencies. All of us know that there's a lot of work happening through international funding and developmental organizations in Nepal on agri-food systems. And also there's a need and indeed engagement of the private sector. Maybe I will start with Dr. Devkota. What is the role or how can we better engage government and private sectors? And also, what role has the international community, particularly the funding and developmental agencies playing? And are there any gaps, challenges? If you could say a few words.
Okay, thank you, sir. Again, मैले यो प्राइभेट सेक्टरबाट सुरु गरेँ गभर्मेन्ट एजेन्सीले हामी कहाँ चाहिँ एग्रिकल्चर सिस्टममा चाहिँ कस्तो देखियो भने पहिला त हाम्रो इन्स्टिट्युसन्सहरू नै फ्रेगमेन्टेड छ त्यो भनेको त्यो एग्रिकल्चर सेक्टरमा डाइरेक्ट काम गर्नुपर्ने भनेको कृषि मन्त्रालय र अहिलेको हाम्रो मन्त्रालयको नाम हेर्ने ऊर्जा जलस्रोत तथा सिंचाइ तथा जलस्रोत यो मन्त्रालय छ सङ्घको र प्रदेशमा चाहिँ मन्त्रालयहरू पनि आफ्नो प्रदेशले आफ्नो अवस्था अनुसार चाहिँ मन्त्रालयहरू बनाएको छ। त्यसमा अलिकति मलाई ब्याकग्राउन्डमा गएर क्लियर गर्न मन लाग्यो। हामी कहाँको डिफिकल्टिज के छ भने यो इन्स्टिट्युसनल एरेन्जमेन्ट चाहिँ अलि चाहिँ फ्रेगमेन्टेड हुँदा सिंचाइ र कृषिको बिचमा हार्मोनाइज्ड डेभलपमेन्टको चाहिँ एउटा एक्टिभिटी हुन सकेन भने चाहिँ हामीले यो क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चरमा काम गर्न सक्ने अवस्था नै बन्दैन। यो हामी कहाँको चाहिँ एउटा इक्जाम्पल भने यस्तो खाले चाहिँ छ। अर्को सोइल कन्जर्भेसनको काम वन मन्त्रालयले हेर्छ। अनि यिनीहरूको बिचमा चाहिँ हार्मोनाइजेसनको चाहिँ अलिकति ल्याक छ। त्यस कारणले चाहिँ एउटा प्रब्लम चाहिँ प्राइभेट सेक्टरलाई आएर काम गर्नलाई चाहिँ त्यो हार्मोनाइज सिचुएसन नहुँदा चाहिँ अलिकति गाह्रो भएको अवस्था देखिन्छ। तर हामी कहाँ फेरि आउँदैन आएको त होइन, प्राइभेट सेक्टरले अहिले यो पिपिपी मोडल जुन छ त्यसमा काम चाहिँ गरेको छ। तर त्यसमा कामहरू स्टार्ट भएका छन्, एकदमै बिगर लार्जर स्केलमा चाहिँ त छैन। यद्यपि यो चाहिँ काम सुरु भएको छ, तर यो चाहिँ अलिकति यसको च्यालेन्ज छ भने के छ भने अलिक सर्ट टर्म गेन्समा चाहिँ लाग्ने र लङ टर्मतिर चाहिँ नलाग्ने हुँदा चाहिँ यो सस्टेनेबल एग्रिकल्चर चाहिँ प्र्याक्टिसेस चाहिँ अलिकति चाहिँ यो फस्टाउन नसकेको जस्तो देखिन्छ। त्यो भनेको प्राइभेट सेक्टरको चाहिँ लिमिटेड इङ्गेजमेन्टको कुरा छ। अर्को मल्टी लेभल कोअर्डिनेसन जुन छ नि, त्यो भनेको अहिले पनि हामीले कुरा गरेका थियौँ। यो लोकल गभर्मेन्ट, प्रोभिन्सियल गभर्मेन्ट र नेसनल गभर्मेन्ट इभन इन्टरनेसनल लेभलमा हुनुपर्ने जुन चाहिँ कोअर्डिनेसन छ त्यो चाहिँ कन्सिस्टेन्ट छैन। त्यो कन्सिस्टेन्ट नहुँदा चाहिँ अलिकति प्राइभेट सेक्टरले आएर काम गर्न इन्भाइरोमेन्ट चाहिँ डिफिकल्टी छ। र यसमा चाहिँ इन्टरनेसनल डेभलपमेन्ट एजेन्सिजहरू स्पेसली कृषि क्षेत्रमा वर्ल्ड ब्याङ्क, एडिबीदेखि लिएर एफएओ यस्ता संस्थाहरूले काम गरेका छन्। तर हामीलाई चाहिँ यो चाहिँ प्रोजेक्ट बेस्ड आउँदो रहेछ, 3 वर्ष 5 वर्षको प्रोजेक्ट होइन। त्यसले चाहिँ हामीलाई सस्टेनेबल चाहिँ एग्रिकल्चर प्रोडक्सनमा चाहिँ ठुलो सपोर्ट गर्न सक्ने चाहिँ नहुने देखिन्छ। अलिक सस्टेनेबल्ली लानलाई चाहिँ लङ टर्म प्रोजेक्ट 15 वर्षको, 20 वर्षको, 25 वर्षको त्यस्तो खाले हामीले चाहिँ हाम्रो प्रोजेक्ट बनाएर काम गर्न सक्ने हो भने चाहिँ एउटा चेन्जेस देखिन्छ। अब एउटा एडिबीको प्रोजेक्ट आउँछ, जस्तो हाम्रो गण्डकीमा के छ, उच्च हिमाली क्षेत्रमा चाहिँ भएको फलफुलको चाहिँ प्रोडक्सनलाई इन्हान्स गर्ने प्रोजेक्ट छ। त्यो एडिबी फन्डेड प्रोजेक्ट हो। मैले एक्जाम्पल दिएँ जुन रियल पनि छ। हामीले चाहिँ मनाङ, मुस्ताङ र गोर्खाको अप्पर पार्टमा स्याउको उत्पादन बढाउन काम गऱ्यौँ। तपाईँले आजकै न्युज हेर्नुभयो चाहिँ अनलाइन न्युज सबै ठाउँमा हेर्नु भने गोर्खाको स्याउ बिक्या छैन, किनकि हामीसँग रोडको एक्सेस छैन। त्यहाँ चुम्नुम्री, धार्चे जस्तो ठाउँमा इभन मनाङको अप्पर मनाङसम्म चाहिँ गाडी गए पनि यो चाहिँ 12 महिना गाडी चल्ने अवस्था छैन। र त्यहाँ भएको चाहिँ प्रडक्सन चाहिँ हामीले चाहिँ तलसम्म ल्याउन सकेको अवस्था छैन। यसको लागि चाहिँ काम गर्न अलि इन्टिग्रेटेड अप्रोचमा इन्टरनेसनल डेभलपमेन्ट एजेन्सिजहरूको को पनि भूमिका चाहिँ लङ टर्म प्रोजेक्ट प्लानिङमा चाहिँ हुनुपर्छ भन्ने लाग्छ। र उहाँहरूले काम चाहिँ गर्नुभएको छ। त्यो चाहिँ एउटा फन्डिङको कुरा भयो भने अर्को चाहिँ क्यापासिटी बिल्डिङ। अब हामीले फार्मरसम्मको क्यापासिटी बिल्डिङ गर्नुपर्ने, हाम्रो इन्स्टिट्युसनल क्यापासिटी त बिल्डिङ गर्नुपर्ने छँदैछ। त्योसँगै हामीले फार्मरसम्मको चाहिँ एउटा इन्स्टिट्युसनल क्यापासिटी बिल्डअप गर्ने यो प्रोजेक्ट लङ टर्म प्रोजेक्ट आउने एउटा च्यालेन्ज भयो। त्योसँगै चाहिँ अर्को चाहिँ हाम्रो इन्टरनेसनल डेभलपमेन्ट एजेन्सीबाट हुने सपोर्ट जुन छ, नेपाल गभर्मेन्टबाटै हुने सपोर्ट छ, डाउन टु द कम्युनिटीसम्म गएर कम्युनिटी फार्मर्स जुन चाहिँ स्मल स्केलमा काम गर्ने फार्मरदेखि लिएर सबैलाई चाहिँ अलिकति यो ट्रेनिङ क्यापासिटी बिल्डिङको काम अर्को आवश्यक छ भने अर्को यी दुइटै चिज राम्रो हुँदाखेरि पनि इम्प्लिमेन्टेसन च्यालेन्जेसहरू चाहिँ देखिया छ। त्यसको लागि पनि हामीले ग्लोबल्ली बेस्ट प्र्याक्टिसेस के छ हाम्रो कन्टेक्स्टमा चाहिँ रेप्लिकेट गर्न सक्ने त्यस्तो चिज चाहिँ बढाउनु पर्ने देखिन्छ। र त्यो बढाउँदा चाहिँ यो हाम्रो लोकल ओनरसिप इट गोज टु दि कम्युनिटी होइन, त्यो लोकल ओनरसिपलाई चाहिँ इन्हान्स गर्ने तरिकाले काम गर्न सक्यो भने प्राइभेट सेक्टरले पनि काम गर्न सक्छ। इन्टरनेसनल एजेन्सीले को सपोर्ट नेपाल गभर्मेन्टलाई हुँदा चाहिँ नेपाल गभर्मेन्ट, प्राइभेट सेक्टर, इन्टरनेसनल डेभलपमेन्ट कम्युनिटी सबैको चाहिँ एउटा चाहिँ इन्टिग्रेटेड अप्रोच भयो र कम्युनिटीले ओन गर्ने लेभलसम्मको प्लानिङ गरेर काम गर्न सक्यो भने चाहिँ यसको चाहिँ अलिकति इफेक्टिभनेस बढ्छ तर अहिले फेरि इन्टरनेसनल डेभलपमेन्ट एजेन्सिजको ठुलो इन्भेस्टमेन्ट छ तर इट सुड बी लङ टर्म प्रोजेक्ट नट 2 years 5 years or even 10 years it should go it should plan for 25 years 30 years or 20 years.
Thank you, Dr. Devkota. Maybe if there's a hand raised by Dr. Joshi. Dr. Adhikari, would you like to take that question or?
Yeah, but sorry, Dr. Joshi, I would like to actually go back to chat. There is one question just hanging around there, very important question, and then we'll come back to Dr. Joshi.
Okay.
By Bijesh Mishra, what climate change means to Nepal? Is answer to this question well defined?
Maybe Dr. Pandey,
Yeah,
yeah.
thanks. It's a very nice question indeed. Perhaps I can answer either 3 keywords. This means risk, opportunities, and injustice. Injustice in a sense that we are not contributing to climate change. We are either very, very less emitter to carbon dioxide, but we are facing the risk. Risk, we already discussed about that with the agro-food system as an example. Opportunities, we are in the relatively early stage of development. We have a long miles to go. Since this kind of risk is, we are aware of the risk, it is an opportunity for us to integrate in development planning process and also enhancing our adaptation. So I think in the 3 keywords, risks, opportunities, and injustice, that's what climate change means for Nepal.
Thank you.
That's my way of thinking.
Very well put. Thank you very much. Dr. Adhikari, maybe last question, and then we will move on to wrap up the discussion.
Mr. Adhikari, sorry to interrupt you. Mukunda has raised hands long ago. Could you please also?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, please go ahead. Mukunda.
नमस्ते, म चाहिँ कृषि मन्त्रालय सङ्घीय कृषि मन्त्रालयमा काम गर्छु। मलाई चाहिँ के लाग्छ भने यसमा हामीले चाहिँ यो डिजास्टरको पोसिबल रिस्कहरूलाई चाहिँ अन्डर एस्टिमेट गरिराखेका छौँ। जस्तो फर इक्जाम्पल फ्यु इयर्स अगो 2 years back we have a farm in Mustang is a apple farm, basically produce apple farm. There is a large flood. Previously it was snowfall in that area, but we faced a large flood and wash out all the plants and this kind of the things. अर्को चाहिँ हामीले यो एग्रिकल्चरलाई चाहिँ नेसनल पोलिसीमा हेर्यो भने चाहिँ जस्तो मिनिस्टर लेभलमा हाई ब्युरोक्रेसी लेभलमा यो चाहिँ एउटा डिस्कसनको पोइन्ट भइराखेको छ तर रियली इट्स नट द प्रायोरिटीमा छैन। अब एग्रिकल्चर मिनिस्टर भनेको नेपालको चाहिँ लिस्ट उसमा पर्छ हैन, त्यसको भोइस चाहिँ त्यो प्राइम मिनिस्टर लेभल क्याबिनेटमा पनि त्यति राम्रोसँग भइराखेको हुँदैन। त्यसले गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ अब हामीले यो जति पनि हामीले यो क्लाइमेट चेन्ज रिलेटेड काम गर्नुपर्ने हो त्यसमा काम गर्न सकिरहेका छैनौँ। अब मिनिस्ट्री अफ एग्रिकल्चरबाट हामीले के गर्छौँ भने भर्खरै फ्लड भयो त्यो डेटाहरू चाहिँ हामीले लिन्छौँ, यतिको चाहिँ लस भयो भनेर खालि हामीसँग चाहिँ दिस काइन्ड अफ द डेटा वी हेभ बट वी क्यान नट डु नेक्स्ट लेभल अफ थिङ्स। त्यो गर्नको लागि हामीलाई बजेटको एभाइलेबिलिटी पनि हुँदैन, त्यो खालको थिङ्किङ त्यसलाई चाहिँ अब नेक्स्ट स्टेपमा हामी कसरी जाने त्यो खालको कुराहरू भइराखेको छैन। अहिले चाहिँ हामीले गरिराखेको चाहिँ के छ भने वेदर फोरकास्टहरू भइराखेको छ, त्यसले केही चाहिँ सेभ गरेको छ। जस्तो यो राइस हार्भेस्टिङको बेलामा अर्ली फोरकास्ट गर्दाखेरि किसानहरूले अर्ली हार्भेस्ट गर्यो, त्यसले चाहिँ केही सेभ गर्यो। तर हामीले एक्चुअली अरू कामहरू चाहिँ गर्न सकेको छैन। अब फ्यु क्रप कमोडिटीहरू जस्तो अब क्लाइमेट रेजिलेन्ट, ड्रट टोलरेन्ट, स्ट्रेस टोलरेन्ट, फ्लड टोलरेन्ट यो भेराइटीहरू चाहिँ केही प्रमोट गर्न सकेका छौँ। बियोन्ड द्याट हामी धेरै कामहरू गर्न बाँकी छ। जस्तै अब वाटरमा चाहिँ हामीले मिनिस्ट्री अफ एग्रिकल्चरबाट हामीले त्यो चाहिँ अब सोलर इरिगेसनको स्किमहरूमा सब्सिडीको कामहरू गरेका छौँ तर हाम्रो वाटर टेबल एभ्री इयर गोज डाउन, तल गइरहेको छ। त्यसलाई सेभ गर्ने, त्यसलाई त्यसको लेभलमा चाहिँ हामीले त्यति धेरै कामहरू गर्न सकेका छैनौँ। अर्को हामीसँग इन्भाइरोमेन्टल प्रोटेक्सन एक्ट 2076 रहेको छ, त्यसमा चाहिँ लोकल लेभल, प्रोभिन्सियल र फेडरल लेभलले एडप्टेसन प्लानहरू बनाएर त्यसमा चाहिँ क्लाइमेट रेजिलियन्टको कामहरू गर्नुपर्ने भन्ने छ त्यो एक्टमा चाहिँ। त्यसमा पनि हामीले इम्प्लिमेन्टेसन लेभलमा चाहिँ हाम्रो रियल्ली च्यालेन्ज छ भन्ने लाग्छ मलाई। थ्याङ्क यू।
Thank you. Dr. Adhikari, maybe last question.
Yeah, Dr. Joshi, please go ahead.
नमस्ते। सबभन्दा पहिला त हाम्रो प्यानलिस्टहरूलाई धेरै धेरै धन्यवाद। असाध्यै राम्रो प्यानल बनाउनु भएछ डाक्टर घिमिरे, डाक्टर खनाल, कङ्ग्रेचुलेसन्स, डाक्टर देवकोटा, डाक्टर पाण्डे दुवै र डाक्टर योदु पोखरेल। असाध्यै राम्रो कुराहरू निस्क्यो, क्लाइमेट चेन्ज, स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर, वेदर रिलेटेड प्रब्लम्सहरू नेपालमा भएको, नेपालमा मात्र संसारभरि नै भइरहेको छ अहिलेको वाटर रिसोर्सेसको प्रब्लम। मेरो एउटा यो सबै कुरामा म रिपिट त गर्दैन, एउटा कुरामा मात्र मलाई इन्ट्रेस्ट लाग्यो, के आयो भने क्वेसन मनमा आयो कि हामीले धेरै कुराहरू गऱ्यौँ, स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर, कमर्सियल एग्रिकल्चर, सबै वन जङ्गलहरू हाम्रो चाहिँ माथि पहाडतिर एग्रिकल्चर कम हुँदै गयो, लाइफस्टकको पपुलेसन एकदम ड्रास्टिकली घटेको सबै छ। त्यसमा एउटा कुरा चाहिँ सस्टेनेबल एग्रिकल्चरको कुरा पनि निस्क्यो। हामी अब भनौँ 40-50 वर्ष अगाडिको त्यसमा फोकस के थियो भने मिक्स्ड फार्मिङ सिस्टम, जुन अहिले चाहिँ सायद त्यसको नाम चाहिँ अब सस्टेनेबल एग्रिकल्चर सिस्टम अथवा कुनै अरू नामले पनि भनियो होला। तर हामीले त्यो अहिले चाहिँ कुनै पनि बेलामा मैले कुनै ठाउँमा यो मिक्स्ड फार्मिङ सिस्टम विषयमा कहीँ पनि उच्चारण देखेको छैन कि अहिले रिसेन्ट त्यो लिटरेचरहरूमा केही त्यो साँच्चै नै त्यो टर्मिनोलोजी चेन्ज भएर सस्टेनेबल एग्रिकल्चर सिस्टम भएर गएको हो कि या त यो कमर्सियलाइजेसन हुँदै जाँदाखेरि हाई इनपुट एग्रिकल्चरमै जोड दिँदै जाँदाखेरि हामीले यो सबै प्रब्लम्सहरू फेस गर्न लागेको हो कि जस्तो लागेर मैले यहाँ कसैले जवाब दिन सक्नुहुन्छ यसको विषयमा? सिम्पल क्वेसन हो मेरो।
Thank you, Dr.
धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद, Dr. Joshi. Panelists, who would like to start?
Maybe briefly, yeah, because of that.
Yes, Dr. Pandey, please, very brief answer to that question.
No, I mean, I could not catch the exact essence of the question. Could you just to summarize
Mixed
it,
farming system, Dr. Joshi, if I
systems.
captured that, mixed farming system used to be kind of a thing, decades ago, and these days, there are so many other things happening. Is that transforming to climate resilient agriculture or sustainable agricultural system is, I think, the essence of the question.
The mixed farming system used to be more sustainable because that's how our seniors or maybe others used to work, and that really helped for the increasing intensity of production from a unit of farm. But with the various reasons, like Professor Dinesh Paudel also mentioned earlier, with the unavailability of the laborers, less attention to the farming systems, and consequently, our economy is contributed only 26% from agriculture, being an agriculture-dependent country. All these things might have made many farmers or they may be youngsters to be moving away from the farming system. That might have raised to this one. But again, if we would like to go to the adaptation strategies, in addition to the traditional local knowledge that we need to preserve, but if people are not there, that also doesn't make a big sense. So how do we really attract people to the agriculture system? By providing incentives or other form of thing should be the first priority. Then only our earlier good practices like mixed farming system would make a big sense. That's a quick comment from my side.
Okay, thank you so much. In the interest of time, we'll move on. I had one last question for each of the panelists, but we don't have so much time. And
I think there's one question I would like to take on very briefly in 1 minute from the Raj GC, Dr. Raj GC, that
very quickly, Dr. Pandey, yes.
Yeah. Can predictive models accurately forecast disaster? The answer is yes, but that is dependent upon the coordination with the other inputs. Like if we have a fairly good, accurate weather forecast system and integrated to the predictive model, we can forecast it. And then the connected question here is whether there is a good coordination between the forecast or the assessment of the impacts with the responders. Perhaps that's where we are still lacking. There could be many reasons for that, but if we have a fairly accurate forecast systems and the impact assessment, then there should be something more like awareness or resource allocation to the respondents so that it can work better. And third thing is we learned from the recent heavy rainfall is that there was a forecast relatively fair enough, and the weather forecast was there, but that was not linked to the level of the impact. So we need to go for the impact-based forecasting system that to make a real sense to the people. That's very quick response from my side. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had the last question I wanted to ask for each of the panelists to say a few words, but I think we have heard, for example, what does climate change mean for Nepal? Dr. Pandey just gave a few words very nicely, and then Dr. Podel talked about indigenous knowledge, the structure that should be in place, and so on. And Dr. Devkota talked a lot about policy aspects, and in the very last answer, he said the long-term planning investment and whatever we do in the agriculture sector, agri-food systems should be context specific and then locally owned. But I would like to ask Dr. Devkota if you had any points to add in terms of way forward. What do we need to do? If we could capture a few things beyond what you said very quickly, maybe in less than a minute, and I'll hand it over for synthesis. And if there is time, we can take more points from other panelists.
Thank you very much. मैले 4-5वटा पोइन्ट मात्रै भन्ने भए सर्ट टाइम भएको भए पहिले त हामीले क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर प्र्याक्टिसेसलाई चाहिँ अलिकति स्ट्रेन्थेन गर्नुपर्छ। त्यसको लागि चाहिँ यो सिडको भेराइटीदेखि लिएर त्यो इफेक्टिभ वाटर म्यानेजमेन्टसम्मले भने त्यो चिजहरू चाहिँ हुन आवश्यक छ र सोइल कन्जर्भेसन टेक्निक्सदेखि लिएर चाहिँ लोकल कन्टेक्सलाई चाहिँ भिजुअलाइज गर्ने लेभलको चाहिँ क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चर इनिसिएटिभ हुनु पर्यो एक। अर्को चाहिँ हामीले यो अर्ली वार्निङ सिस्टम जुन छ त्यसलाई अझ स्ट्रेन्थेन गर्नु पर्यो। हामीले अर्ली वार्निङ सिस्टमलाई आजको रूपमा बाढी आउने बाटो चाहिँ हुन्छ हुँदैन, फ्लड र ल्यान्डस्लाइडले बाटो असर गर्ने चिजलाई आम मान्छेले युज गर्ने भएको हुनाले बढी छ। तर त्यसले एग्रिकल्चर सेक्टरमा यहीँ हेरौँ कास्कीमा भने म अहिले जहाँ बसिरहेको छु there is huge impact due to the recent heavy rainfall, होइन? That is lack of the early warning system. त्यो भएको अर्ली वार्निङ सिस्टम नै डाउन टु दि कम्युनिटी अथवा फार्मर्समा चाहिँ पुग्न नसक्यो। यसलाई चाहिँ अलिकति स्ट्रेन्थेन गर्नुपर्ने देख्छु हामीले यो क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चरको लागि। अर्को चाहिँ यो मार्केट एक्सेस जे छ त्यसलाई पनि चाहिँ अलिकति रिजिलियन्ट बनाउने, इन्फ्रास्ट्रक्चर र मार्केट एक्सेसलाई चाहिँ रिजिलियन्ट बनाउने। रोडहरू चाहिँ डिस्ट्रक्सन हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ त्यसले पार्ने अरू इम्प्याक्टहरू रहन्छ भने अर्को चाहिँ यो इन्टरनेसनल सपोर्ट र डोमेस्टिक फाइनान्सिङलाई चाहिँ अहिले पनि मैले भने यो दोहोरियो चाहिँ अलिकति लङ टर्म चाहिँ वेमा चाहिँ लान सकियो भने चाहिँ हामीले क्लाइमेट स्मार्ट एग्रिकल्चरको लागि नेपालमा चाहिँ काम गर्न सक्छ, जसले यो हाम्रो चाहिँ डेभलपमेन्ट एग्रिकल्चर डेभलपमेन्ट को इनिसिएटिभ जे छ अहिलेको कन्टेक्समा त्यसलाई चाहिँ अझ चाहिँ बढी जोड पुर्याउन सक्छ भन्ने मलाई लाग्छ। These are the points that we need to consider fundamentally.
Thank you so much, Dr. Devkota. We have learned a lot. We thank you for sharing your experience, knowledge, wisdom. I think this is way beyond I was getting to achieve from these discussions. Now, for the last 5 minutes or so, I would like to hand it over to Dr. Keshav Bhattarai for a synthesis of this program. Thank you.
Thank you. I have the opportunity to share my slide, and I have prepared them. Yeah. Can I upload my slide?
Just a second, Ananta.
Yeah, you should be able to share that.
Yeah, I should be able to. Okay, thank you. So let me see that in the interest of time. Do you see my slide?
Yes, if you could go full screen, that would be better.
Okay, full screen. Is that visible?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Yadu. Okay, I have heard a lot about you, but you made my work very easy. And so I'm required to put my comments on Dr. Vishnu Pandey, Krishna Devkota, Dr. Dinesh Podel, and some questions from Tibet Adhikari, Dr. Bharat Shrestha, and Dr. Mukunda. And so also our NAPA president also raised some of the issues about it is not only the agriculture and also the climate change, but also the exodus, the migration, and also tourism. And I tried to address all of these and what I heard from here, Dr. Vishnu Pandey, and he talked about the agriculture, in that sense, and he emphasized more on water resources and the riverbed scoring, and also the crop rotations, and also he emphasized on the location-specific cases. And so then coming to Krishna Devkota, and he was very much about the policy issues. Prime Minister Agriculture Modernization Systems, and then climate smart agriculture. And he also mentioned about the difficulties in coordination between the local, regional, and federal at the federal level. And he also mentioned about the LAPA and the NAPAs. And then he also highlighted how difficult it is to incorporate the ideas from the diaspora in response to one of the questions. Dr. Dinesh Borel, he brought about the indigenous knowledge, and then the gap between the academicians and the proposal writers, and the implementers, what is happening. And also he talked about the dozer terrorism. And I will say that dozer terrorism, especially when every ward chairman wants the dozer, and he or she wants the work, and so therefore they want to do it. And he also mentioned about the wildlife reading, and he also brought a very nice examples of his mom, how that indigenous knowledge is working. So that said, and I have made some of the slides, and if the committee allows me, in the interest of time, and everybody is in hurry because we took already a lot of time. So if you allow me, I will go through my slides very quickly and at the speed of 90 miles per hour, and then don't cite me a ticket. Will that be okay?
Yeah.
Will you allow me to do that? Is there a time?
Yes, sure, please. I think we have great interest and we have great retention of audience fully, and I don't see any dropout. I think there is great interest.
Dr.
Okay,
Batra, if you could do quickly, probably in 2 minutes or so, we will probably have all the audience. I don't know whether people need to leave. So if you could do quickly, I think, we'll have the audience still here.
2 minutes probably would be difficult. And so thank you. And so what I found is the overall summary is the government ineffectiveness, and I found that, and the political inefficiency, and the corruption and mismanagement, and the training ineffectiveness. The Dr. Dinesh Paudel brought that indigenous knowledge, and the indigenous people were able to safeguard. And Dr. Devkota already mentioned that about the NAPA and the LAPA situations. And these are some of my arguments, and what the president had said, just now, Ramji Gimere, I said that. And then these are some of the typical issues that the disaster preparedness and what is the situation here. And so these are in the context of the national context. I have prepared some of these slides here, and so what is the situations of Nepal and how we have addressed those. And Dr. Pandey mentioned about how many people lost their lives, and so where these agricultural based industries were wasted, and where the transportations have been damaged, and these are some of the damages in the 2015 and 2081, and because of advance in the technology. What we have done, what did we do in 2050, and what has been done in 2081? And so I wanted to summarize that, but there is not much time on this one. And so this one comes from the Seta Party, and I saw that in the presentations, and these are the losses that in different districts. I've seen this. And these are some of the catastrophe that the government mismanagement and misinformation, not having the location-specific information in the Bhagwanpur districts and Sisneri, what happened when this Kulekhani was open. And so these are the market here, existing market, and now what is happening here in the existing market. And this was the plot situation in 2019-50 and versus 2081, although we have the discussion and the predictions of different models, and Vijay Mishra also raised that questions, and Dr. Pandey also brought that, and we have the forecasting situation, forecasting facilities, and we have been doing it. And so with that, and what we did, and so there have been a lot of damages everywhere, damages, and so Dr. Dinesh Paudel, he brought the issue of the cursor, and so this cursor, opening of the cursors has to pay 200,000 rupees because one of the child was far away by the water, stagnant water. And this is the rice field here, and what is happening. And this is one of the highways and how the damages have been done. And this is one of the tourism sectors, what Dr. Ramji he brought this issue, our president has brought that issue, and what has been the impact on the tourism, and that also I wanted to highlight it. And so these are some of the damages we have seen. And the damage in the educational institutions, and there have been colossal damages, and the different, the municipal government and then the provincial government has taken several steps to provide some facilities or the compensations to the flood damages. And so there are more damages in the different districts. And now coming to the model, and one of the questions came to the model, and we are in the northern hemisphere. In the southern hemisphere, there is more water than the land surface. In the southern hemisphere, we have the continental climate. In the continental climate, we need more variables in order to predict the climate change. And because of that, probably our prime minister did not believe it. And so therefore he was in New York. And so when he went back, and we don't know whether the erosion would take place, it did not say that the climate prediction, it did not say that it happens exactly in that particular location. Probably he mentioned that. I do not know. How to convince our politicians is a question now. We have to convince our politicians, and if we could convince our politicians, this is the rate of the climate change and how the temperature is changing, and we have the flood occurrence, and when the large flood occurs, when the small flood occurs, and these are the predictive models, the statistics has clearly predicted, and these are some of the avalanches that occurs in the Himalayan region. And if we want to talk about the geopolitics and how the Nepal has been an interest in the geopolitics and how China is building different different stations in different countries like the Iran, and also in Pakistan, in Godar, and also in the Hemantota of Sri Lanka. And so what would happen if United States of America and other allies, they close that the state of Malacca? And so what will happen to that? And in that situation, what Nepal does, and so these will be the consequences of the climate change that I have talked about. And so we have been predicting when the monsoon comes and when the damage would occur. We have said that. And at the same time, we also have that urbanization, so rapid urbanizations. And when the rapid urbanization took place, what happens? The gap between this rainfall and the water flow, the flood, the gap is very less. This is the time lag is very less. And when it was very urbanized, very urban areas, and then the ground has to be recharged, and the water used to retain on the ground surface. So therefore the water was not flowing. And so therefore the flood used to take longer time to come, to appear. Whereas in the urban system, when the urbanization since 2007, the world population, the world urbanization systems has exceeded the rural populations. So therefore, the urbanization has increased the impervious surface. And once the impervious surface has increased, the gap between the rainfall and the flood is very, very low. And whereas in the peri-urban areas, the gap is very high. So in that situation, do we need to analyze the Nepal situation? Where is the urbanization? What is the peri-urban situation? What urban situation is? What Dr. Powell raised that, and the catastrophe happened in the urban areas and the peri-urban areas. And do we need to analyze that? Yes, we need to. And so what is the situation? And so there is a recharge gap. And so the water can be recharged under the ground if it is not impervious, and if we plant grass. And what Dr. Powell mentioned about the indigenous knowledge, his mom said that. So we don't need to talk about this. And whereas the Ministry of Home Affairs is under the shadow of the politicians, and everything has been centralized in the ministerial level. And so some of these peoples are very irresponsible, and even the newspaper quotes that. And the disaster management chief was in Japan, and when that disaster happens, and although the announcement was done that there will be a torrential rainfall in Nepal, and so the economic losses, economic disasters, and many the panelists have already mentioned about it. And so there are losses in agriculture, hydropower, and also the industry and the commerce, and road, and wholesale trade, and the tourism. So do we need to convince our politicians? How do we convince? And what is the rainfall pattern in the 1900 to 2009? And so at different elevations, and do they need information at the 1000 level, 2000 level, 3,000 level, 4,000 level, at what elevation they need, and where the temperature changes. And there was a discussion here that the temperature is changing in the mountainous areas at a very rapid speed, 0.06 degrees Celsius, Celsius. And so in that sense, and do they need more information on it? So we can provide that, and also the rainfall pattern. And the rainfall pattern has been the bimodal. And then now the rainfall is occurring in the month of October. And do they then need information? What things do we need to provide to our politicians? So, and so in that sense, and when our Prime Minister said that, the slope did not tell us, the forecast did not tell us, and where the landslide will be. And so where the landslide will be. And when there is a great slope, there will be landslide. And that we don't need to tell anybody. And we need to develop that index. We can develop it. And so if we look at the provincial level, these are the slope areas. And where how much areas is under different under slope in different provinces. And what will be the slope length, and what is the river flow in different areas, and what percent of the river they flow there, and what is the surface water at different elevations. And we can find out that we have the technology to do it. And so if we look at the weather and the meteorological system, we have that recording system started from 1921. And coming to post-1966, we have the Department of Hydrology and Meteorology. But what we have done is that we fly the balloon. We fly balloon every month, every morning at 5 o'clock. And that costs about 250 euro, and that is $37,000 rupees. And that is it. That is what we gather information. Dr. Devkota said that, and we need more climate information. How do we get that climate information? We need money. And so there is no the climate forecasting system in Sudapashchim and the Kosi provinces, where the Indian government has invested a lot of money. And we talk about India is doing progresses, and how it is doing progresses. India is doing progress, and we do not spend more money on it, and we are spending money on this other things. And so I don't want to comment more. And so with this and the progress in early warning systems and the significant weather in Kathmandu, Dading, Chiton, and the Makwanpur districts was forecasted in 2002. And the current improvement, we didn't do much. And we have the information. We have the Doppler radar, and we could do that in Kathmandu Valley, but we just fly only one balloon a day. And where we need to do that 2 or 3 balloons in a day. And so it is not that Nepali people are not doing anything. They are doing. The military has invented how to create the Bailey Bridge. And so in the context of time, and I would not go into that detail. And the second topical issue is about the migrations and what our NAPA president raised. And also there was some the discussion here, the exodus, what Dr. Powdell said. So if we look at the migration history, so our migration started from the First World War and the Second World War also. Our country was compensated at that time, and because our warriors went to fight. And there were westward migration and eastward migration. And westward migration, these are the permanent settlers that we are here. And we are among the westward migrants. And we come here in the form of education, but what we do, and we stay here. And then we just provide comments to the government. And so what is happening here from the mountain region and the mid-hills region and the Tarai region, the population is decreasing, and many of the districts have registered negative population growth today. And so if we look at the demographic the scenario, and the Himalayan mountain has expected 1% decrease, and because there is not much population there, and the mid-hills has noticed that 5% decrease, and then the Tarai has increased a significant increase, the 6% increase in the populations, and that is very close to the Indian border. So permanent immigration, and we always talk about, that our education system is not working, and so therefore money is flowing outside. Why does it do that? And because our educational systems do not have the fixed schedule to provide examination. We don't publish our results on time. And so as a result, what is happening every year, Nepali are moving outside. And so what does that show is that the we talk about the remittances. Okay, and we are sending people abroad, but they are bringing remittances. And what the remittances is. And so here in the urban and the rural areas, and it also shows the other sources. And so where the money is spent in education, capital formations, business, and the household. And so where is that money? And the capital formation, there is not much money here. And where do we spend our the remittance? In daily consumptions. Will that daily consumption, do we move anywhere? No, that is what the way forward. We need that. And the food security situations, yes, we have the very, very food security problems. And so these are red areas and what I have shown here. And there are some more situations, very, very severe situation in some areas here, 1 to 3 months, and 4 to 6 months, 7 to 9 months, 10 to 12 months. And so these are the what percent of the populations get enough food. And these are the how the people meet their requirements and waste from outside. And then the pensions, borrowing, and others. And these are the situations. How we analyze that? Reformative versus transformative policies response. And that was one of the questions raised here by Dr. Yadu Pokhrel. And so in that reformative, we want to change that slowly, but we need that transformative policy response very quickly. And what Dr. Devkota mentioned about it, and the problems, there are problems in the coordinations between the local, the regional, provincials, and the federal government. How do we do it? We need to include, this is the Nepal that where we live, and then we have to make it. We have to turn that iron into gold. And so to do that, what we need, the climate information, where the climate has changed over time. And so this is the what Dr. Podel has mentioned that, and people are raising their Chongrigai to the higher elevation. Why? It's because the temperature is rising, and so the Bansi doesn't find the ahal place. And so in that sense, and if we take that example, and I just found that the publications here is that the tiger is found in Dadeldhura now. And it used to be in the tropical places, the Royal Bengal tigers. Even the hyena is going to Dadeldhura in the Baitari district. Why? Because the climate change. These are the evidences. And so with that, and so in 1992, there was a conference in Rio de Janeiro that said that even the small farmers can cool the planet, and because the evapotranspirations and the plant capture the solar radiations and they reduce the temperature. And the urban areas, if we plant the biggest trees, and that also reduce the temperature by 30% or 35%. And so these are some of the urban farming areas. And so relationship between the increased temperature and the decrease in the agricultural productions. And these are some of the examples, and I will not go into the detail because this is the community of the agriculturists. So therefore, I don't want to be stupid just explaining here. So for that, way forward, what one of the questions is way forward. So what is there? These are the settlement areas, and what we have now, and what we need to have is that we need to find a safe settlement. And because there have been a lot of natural calamities everywhere in Nepal, and whenever there is extreme temperature, extreme rainfall, and there is a lot of the problems with the low-income people. And so therefore, we need to find out this safe settlement. And when we talk about the safe settlement, and I proposed that one time, and they said that, okay, most of these areas are the protected areas. And so in that protected areas, and you live in America, and then you give lecture to us, and so proposing the settlement in the protected areas. And then why? Disturbance to ecosystem services due to unfriendly infrastructure. There are many unfriendly infrastructure. We can take examples from Netherlands. We can take examples of some of the Indians construction, even to the Indonesian and the Malaysian. And so we can construct the wildlife-friendly infrastructure. And so with some of the infrastructure that we have constructed, sometimes the wild animal cannot cross the road. And so there is no crossing points. And as a result of that, there have been a lot of problems. And so the program to return people in the hills and the municipalities, and so some of the municipalities, they have taken initiatives. What Dr. Podel said, that the indigenous knowledge. And so here the indigenous knowledge people have applied, and they have started giving incentives to the people. One, milking cow, and also $30,000 rupees to the people who migrate there for the settlement, just like the seed money that we provide at the educational institutions. And so this type of the steps we have to take. And or we might take that local architectures and we develop and then develop the tourism. And some of the mayors, they have been talking about the for like more converting that. And now the World Bank, what does it say? And based on the lighting in the mountainous areas, they calculate GDP and they're saying that Nepal GDP is rising. Oh, yes, rising. And so what are the structure here? As Dakota mentions that there is a problem in communicating between the central government, provincial government, and the local government. Have we been communicating properly? And are we in a stage of calculating GDP based on the lighting? What is that lighting? And what do we need? We need that agricultural land use. We need to have those agricultural land use. Where is that? And where are the urban areas? And where we have built up more areas and made the land surface impervious. And then that lacks the recharging capacity of the underground. And as a result of that, the flooding has occurred so many times. And the rural to urban populations, what is the populations in different provinces, and have we considered that? So that thing has to be considered. And in order to find out the location is specific, and the people are talking that, oh, you live in America, and then giving us theory. What theory? Yes, look at here. So where is the slope, and where you could settle the people, and where there are the possibilities to construct the wildlife-friendly infrastructure and make Nepal a natural heritage for the tourism industry. And so these are some of the areas that I have identified to settle people. And these are some of the ward and household living in different Gaonpalika, municipalities, and sub-metropolitan areas. What Dr. Paudel mentioned about the most of the disasters have taken place in the peri-urban areas and the urban areas. And why? Is because ruralopolis, and we have declared many of the rural areas as the urban areas in order to earn more revenue, but we have not provided any facility incentives to the people. This is in the Gandaki provinces, and this is in the Bagmati province and the Kosi province. As a result, if we don't do that, we are very much emphasizing on the remittance, and what is resulting into that? That is resulting into the female-headed household in many places. And wherever we look at that, we find that in Sudar Paschim, the female-headed household. If we come to Bagmati areas, and that is also the female-headed household. And so where do we find that? In metropolis, there is 50% here, the male-headed household and a female-headed household. And so I am not becoming gender biased, that female should not be the household. I am not saying that. But what we have developed, we are developing here, we are developing a culture of sending people abroad. And with that, and there have been a lot of death. And so now we have developed the culture of receiving crops from outside, and the people are coming in the box instead of sending the money, and because they are exposed to the hard work. So who to be blamed? And we have the distributive policies in Nepal in order to be very popular among the people. And so that old age pension, that will haunt these people, these leaders who are here now, that will haunt them. And because that old age pension takes about 15 to 60% of the GDP, and which should have been used to construct the more industries and in order to create a job, and not to have these people, not to compel the people to go abroad and to work, but instead they will be working in their own countries. And so these are some of the references that I referred. And sorry, because of the lack of the time, and I spoke overhead, and I went at the speed of over 90 miles per hour. And thank you for the opportunities. And I would like to tell the participant that I joined this NAPA. I am a forester and I'm a geographer. I joined this NAPA, and when I joined it, and people told me that, and this is a politically indoctrinated organization. It is not. It is very much professional, and so therefore I urge every participant and who have not joined this NAPA or who have connections to other professionals, please join NAPA. And this is the organization that we want to contribute to the country, and we want to contribute to the academic institutions. This is all from me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Wow, it was really sensational. Let's give big round of applause to Dr. Pokhrel, Dr. Devkota, Dr. Pandey, Dr. Podel for such an informative and thought-provoking panel discussion, as well as to Dr. Bhattarai for such a comprehensive synthesis and further illuminations. I think we need to continue such discourse and probably with some extended forum like symposium or like that, sometimes in winter or so. So yeah, I would like to thank to Dr. Subodh Adhikari for facilitating question and answer. Thanks to Subina for taking notes. And before moving to closing, NAPA President Dr. Ramji Ghimre has something to say. Then we move on to closing. Thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you so much, everyone. We are over the time, but bear with us for a couple of minutes. But I would also like to thank all the panelists and also moderator Dr. Pokhrel and our reviewer and critiker, Dr. Bhattarai, for your excellent deliberation today, and also Dr. Khanal and his team, webinar team. Before that, we have a special guest here today, Dr. Abdi Hassan from Ethiopia. Dr. Abdi, are you in there? All right, thank you so much. So would you please introduce yourself, who you are, where are you from, and we won't have time to talk much, but let other colleague know. And I think you heard the presentation. Please, over to you,
Thank you so
Dr.
much. Thank you so much, Dr. Ramji, and all the other colleagues. It's my pleasure to be here. I think today it was my first time to participate this webinar. Apart from that, my name is Dr. Abdi. I am the academic vice president of Chichiga University. Apart from the designation or the position that I have in my university, I've been working as an associate professor at Chichiga University for the last 10 years. Even though I have not ever been to Nepal, but I did my second and third degree in Benja University, Patiala. And we have been working together with Dr. Ramji and Dr. I think Professor Nanda. So I get more information about, even though I know I know some, I mean, Nepal, because there were some colleagues that we have been together when I was in Benja University, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abdi.
Thank you for the invitation. And
Thank
it
you
will
so
be
much,
my pleasure
Dr.
to be a part
Hassan.
of this NAPA.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, over to you. And I would also like to request everyone over here whoever haven't joined NAPA, please join NAPA. As Dr. Bhattarai mentioned, this is a professional association. We'd welcome you and we'd like to request you to work together. Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Khanal.
Thank you, Dr. Ramji Ghimre, President NAPA. Finally, I'd like to request NAPA General Secretary Dr. Ananta Acharya to give closing remarks with vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Khanal. What a great webinar, right? Today, we saw, like, we just had one webinar maybe 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago, and in a short time, and in the context of the flooding in Nepal and US and all these different climate and the disasters, we had a great panelist today. And thank you for organizing this one, Dr. Khanal, and all the webinar committee from the NAPA. So I would like to especially thank you, Dr. Khanal, and the webinar committee to start with, and Dr. Pokhrel for moderating today's session. And also all the moderators today, Dr. Devkota, Dr. Pandey, Dr. Paudel. And we also had a great synthesis of all the comments and the presentation by Dr. Bhattarai. So also very, very much thank you to Dr. Bhattarai. And as we have mentioned earlier, various speakers and also Dr. Ghimre, our president, has said earlier, we would need to continue this effort. So our community is stronger with more people and more diversity of thoughts and more diversity of the expertise. So let's keep on working on these kind of things. And with that, again, I would like to thank you everyone and close the webinar for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.